all of these Caribbean people who migrate, you find that they begin to develop new diseases. You find that they begin to develop new diseases because of the new food and the new medicines that they are taking. That is the reason why the development of indigenous Caribbean medicine is so important, because we need practitioners who can care for people of tropical and subtropical biology. So this gave birth to the early effective theft of our medicinal knowledge for gain by our oppressors. When the botanists, when the pastors who came and the Europeans came, they studied indigenous people. They respected the knowledge, first of all, enough to study them, to learn, and to use that knowledge to their benefit. And what they have done, for the most part, is that they have led us to believe that this knowledge has no use to us, that this knowledge is steeped in mysticism, it's steeped in all types of witchcraft, it's steeped in all types of unfounded scientific principles, and so we have disdained it. And so for years, indigenous Caribbean medicine has been wrongfully blamed, it has been wrongfully judged, it has been wrongfully sentenced, and it has not been properly and honestly been evaluated for the benefit. And so what has happened is that the Europeans have looked at the wisdom, they've looked at the knowledge, they have taken it, they have repackaged it, they have used it to their advantage, and what they have done is that they have led us to believe, and so that it is wrong. The passing of the Obia law is a typical example. Because our practice was not just steeped in herbs, but also steeped in rituals and ceremonies, the Europeans, who didn't understand our culture, who didn't understand our belief system, they enforced laws, they enforced policies that made it illegal for us to practice. And so, can you imagine your oppressor who doesn't understand you? Why would he pass laws that would benefit us? Why would he pass laws that would help us? Now, I must say that I'm of the Hebraic faith. My practices are rooted in Torah. So I don't practice anything, whether traditional or not, that I can't find a principle being rooted in Torah. So let me put that disclaimer out there. So I'm not opening up the floodgates to say everything that the traditional practitioners practice was kosher or was Torah based. But what I am saying is that it wasn't properly evaluated. In the same way that a lot of what was given to us, a lot of what was given to us as pagan Christianity was okay. Even in Judaism, there is Kabbalah, which is an esoteric practice of the Hebrew faith. So, all around the world. But what we have done is that we have not properly evaluated our culture to take from it what is valuable. I remember reading in the scripture, for example, how when Moses and Elijah appeared to the disciples, how it was never misconstrued to be a demonic encounter or a satanic encounter, but it was the Hebraic respect for their ancestors and how they interacted with their ancestors. Now, if it was an African ceremony and there was any type of ancestral experience, it would have immediately been misconstrued as being demonic. It would have immediately been misconstrued as being satanic, and it would have been outlawed. And this is the approach. It's okay for every other culture to respect and to embrace their ancestors and the way of their ancestors, but for us as Africans, it's always presented as being evil. It's always presented as being wicked. And so the Obia Act, the Obia law, was a direct result of that. So as a result of that, I've always said that our medicine was wrongfully accused, wrongfully tried, wrongfully judged, and wrongfully sentenced. You know, I'll give you an example, and I'll talk about it, you know, furthermore. So let me go down further. But this is very dear to my heart, because indigenous Caribbean medicine was valued and is valued by the oppressors. The only person who has never valued our medicine, the medicine that's kept us alive up until now, has been us as a people. And so it's interesting to note that white philosophers and botanists like John Lindsay saw our indigenous healers smart enough to study them and record their knowledge. They further went on to use the knowledge to fight diseases at the time and created new medicines from the knowledge. Our present leaders have not seen that value, and our leaders don't see the wisdom in our ancestral knowledge being worthy enough to preserve or protect. Now, I want to make a very important note. When the European came to Jamaica and the Caribbean, our importance was not based on tourism. It was not based on mining. The wealth of Jamaica, the reason why the Europeans sought to exploit Jamaica and the Caribbean was because of its natural resources. It was because of the food and because of the medicine. That was why they exploited the Caribbean. Now, I can't, for the, of a better word, understand how it is now that we have not learned from that to the point that a country like Jamaica has based its income, its foreign exchange income, has based its economy on something as fickle as tourism. Why would you want to base the vast majority of your foreign exchange earnings on something as fragile as tourism? And I mean, it's great, but our greatest wealth has always been our natural resources. It is our inability to see that has resulted in us doing something as foolish as giving up an unreplenishable resource as land in the cockpit, which is home to many indigenous herbs. It is the reason why I would give that up, to mine out that earth, which has more value to the plants, and thus the plants having more value to us. It is the inability to see that leads us to doing something that is not only hurtful, but foolish. And so, the Caribbean and Jamaica was valuable because of the natural resources. So it would go without saying that if you're going to build an economy, if you're going to build a strong economy, build it around what is naturally abundant in that area, which is our herbs. Jamaica is known as a land of wood and water. So when I was studying natural medicine, I studied at Sandy Hill Institute of Natural Medicine. I couldn't relate to using raw material that was already harvested, raw material that was dark, that I couldn't identify it or sight in its raw, in its live state. That was what led me to start my study of indigenous herb, because I came from a land where 50% of the medicinal herbs in the world are found here, with 30% only being found here. It would make sense for me to do an audit on what I have and learn to use that. Not only because it makes sense, but because it would be more affordable. I remember when I was studying during a time when Jamaica was facing a number of hurricanes, and those hurricanes and tropical storm resulted sometimes in huge backlogs in shipments. And so I would have been held ransom, not being able to access the herbs that I would ship. So I said, no, this doesn't make sense. I need to learn my Jamaican herbs. And so I started out interviewing traditional healers. It was very difficult because even though sometimes they were talking about the same plants, the common names were different. And even though they were well averse in the uses of these plants that they acquired through oral knowledge, they didn't know why these plants worked or how they worked. So not having a consistent methodology and system of accessing the plants was really very difficult for me. And so that's why I spent 10 or 12 years doing. I spent over 10 to 12 years understanding the pattern and the consistency with the herbs until I was able to organize a structure of knowing how to use medicinal plants. So it's not based on knowing a lot of plants by names. As a matter of fact, the way I teach natural medicine, I teach natural medicine in such a way where you are taught to know the medicinal uses of a plant without knowing the name of the plant. The name is usually the last thing that you learn.